Hello, this is Nikisha Ware, and if you're watching this video, you are an educator, either a teacher or a principal or some administrator, a professor even, and you're probably tired, burnt out, and you're wondering if you have what it takes to finish the year out, or if you have what it takes to do another 3 or 5 years or work until retirement as an educator, and you may even be toying with the idea of throwing in the towel and you're looking for some guidance, some direction, some answers. But I can tell you this, the answer is within you today. So in this video, I'm going to share with you 3 questions that I asked myself as a burnt out, high earning PhD university administrator to get me to the concept and the idea of what I really wanted to do in life, and now the work that brings me so much joy. So these are the 3 questions, and just to remind you again where I was burnt out. I had put in nearly 20 years in education. I had been an elementary, middle, high school teacher, had been a teacher coach. I was an executive director for the state's only public school university partnership, and was launching programs actually for the state's wealthiest philanthropist, launching his dreams for reading in public education. So I was there doing that job for years and honestly made a great income. I expanded the university's institute from working just with one school district to 9 school districts. Took their budget from about 5 million to in excess of 15 million of funding. And I had chartered a teacher and leadership development program for males. So after all this, after 7 years, I was tapped out. I was worn out. It was difficult for me to get up in the mornings and get to work. I was being careless with my work. The fire and the joy that I used to have with doing that job, it just was no longer there. And I knew this. I knew that if I continued to work in that vein and in that effort, that I was going to be an ineffective leader. I was going to be an ineffective employee, and my boss was going to end up firing me. So I did settle down long enough to ask myself these 3 questions that I want to share with you. And I promise you, you might make that shift like I did, and one day find that you're just not going to put the 60 to 70 hours in every week. You're not going to stuff life in on the weekends anymore. You're not going to do the out-of-state travels and continue to build up somebody else's dream and vision. So please address these questions to yourself and see if it won't make a difference in giving you some direction and letting you get the joy back into what you're doing, your life's work. So this is the first question I asked myself. Am I capable or am I called to this work? So I could do the work. Even though it was challenging, there were things that I had to overcome in that position over the 7 years. It was still easy work. I could do the work. It was like school for me. So I asked myself, okay, Nikisha, so you're struggling like this, you're frustrated in this position. Are you really called to this position? Are you called to this work? Or are you doing it just because you can? You're capable. You have the mental capacity to do this kind of work. And I had to answer myself, yeah, I believe I'm called to teach and coach individuals how to take decisive action, but might not, necessarily have to happen in the classroom. And I say that to you, depending on where you are in your educational career, either a principal or a teacher assistant, wherever you are, you're going to spend the majority of the rest of your time here in this life working. So it needs to be work that you enjoy. You don't want to spend the next 200,000 hours, 288, 300,000, 400,000 hours if you're a young teacher, doing work that does not excite you and just sets your spirit on fire. So you need to sit down, have a heart-to-heart talk with yourself, do some self-inventory, and determine, is this the work that I am called to do? And not just for the kids' sake. So often I get people, well, I just can't leave the kids. Well, guess who is just as important as the kids? You are. So you can't just do this work just for the kids' sake. You should have to do it for your own sake. So ask yourself, am I called or am I capable of doing this work? Second question. Ask yourself this. If my boss fired me today, how would I feel? How would I feel if my boss fired me today? So you've probably heard me say that even though I was making a great income, I was burnt out, tired, unmotivated. I had reached all the goals that I had, planned for the Institute. And so, for lack of a better word, y'all, I was bored, unchallenged, unmotivated. I had to push myself out of the house every morning, going to meetings, and it was torture. I had again began to make careless mistakes, and I knew that if I continued to do that, my boss was going to fire me. So I asked myself, how would I feel if that would happen? Now, if you feel like me, uh, sheer relief or a peace of mind, then you might need to consider other things, looking into really what work motivates you and pushes you, because that is exactly how I felt. I had just received a grant award notification from one of the world's wealthiest foundations for almost $5 million to continue work at the university and across the state. I handed in my letter to my boss, and y'all, the peace of mind and relief that came over me was worth it. All the time I had spent torturing, going back, conflicted about what I should do, was culminated in that very moment. So my question to you is to really ask yourself, how would I feel if my boss fired me? Tap into that emotion, and then that emotion is going to give you some direction on what your next step needs to be. So the last question number 3, ask yourself, if money was not an issue, how would I spend my time? So that question is important because it's going to lay the foundation and give you really some idea of not just your next steps, but what you are called to do, what you are purposed to do, because you, dear heart, was purposed and created for more than just working a job that bores you and just paying bills until you die. So if money is not an issue, how would you spend your time? Now, think of this. If you had $50 billion, you had bought your dream home, you had bought your mom and daddy a home, your kids are set up for life, you've got your car, you got your gadgets, what would you do with your time? How would you spend your time every day? Now, that question, granted, you're not going to be able to answer for yourself within the time that this video is being presented. So that is one that's going to require some deep reflection, deep introspection. Again, doing that self-inventory, making a list of those things that you do like. How do I spend my time? I'm not talking about on the couch eating or watching TV, but how, when you feel yourself most excited, most passionate about life, what exactly are you doing? What are you thinking about? And guys, I promise you, when you answer that question for yourself, and you make the decision that you're going to do what sets your soul on fire, then I promise you, life is going to offer up to you events, circumstances, people that are going to help you get to that place where you are doing fulfilling work. So, and if you're like me, I thought I'd teach and be a coach and work in education for the rest of my life until I retired, because simply that was what I was trained to do. I was trained to go to school, get good grades, get that degree, get that good paying job. But what I failed to do was really, really get to the heart of why I believe I was created and how I could help. So now my classroom is not limited to the 4 walls. The world is my classroom, and now instead of just teaching people in those 4 walls, I get to teach people and coach people on how to take decisive action, on how to live life on their terms, and to do exactly what they've been designed to do. So ask yourself that third question: How would you spend your time? And then take action to plan your steps to do what you really love. So just to recap those three questions for you: if you're burnout, if you're tired, if you are looking at another year and just wondering where you're going to get the strength to do it, ask yourself this: what am I capable of doing? Not that. What am I called to do? Secondly, ask yourself, if my boss fired me today, if he came in the office or if she came in the office today and said, get your bag, get your box, go home for the day, you're done, what would you feel like? Get in touch with that feeling and follow that feeling, because it's going to give you an indication of what your next steps need to be. And lastly, if money and time were not an issue at all, what would you be doing? How would you be spending your time? So those are three critical questions that have helped me. I hope it's been helpful to you, and my desire is that you not settle for a life of just lackluster days and getting on that hamster wheel, but that getting a life that involves more than just getting by, doing and living the life that you were created to live. And again, I hope that's been helpful. Thank you for tuning in, and have an awesome day.